39 minutes past the hour. We thank you for staying with the Daily Report. Time now for the People's Court. And tonight, as we had informed you earlier, we have quite a rather different program. Our focus tonight is on childhood diabetes and hypertension.
Yes.
Well, it is, yes, on that. And it's a jam-packed affair. And I'm glad that they all made it here, despite the tough times on the road. And we have to have this very important conversations. And I'm glad we also have, youngsters who are willing to speak, about their stories and their experiences. We say that, well, most of these diagnoses that you would ever get is not a question of it being, a death sentence. It's basically how you manage it. And therefore, while we might not have so much of time to articulate the depth of this whole, we certainly hope that we're going to do some bit of justice as to this crucial conversation. Victor Muyakani.
Yes, indeed. And good people, if you're watching us, I wonder if the camera can just pan a little bit and you get to see just wonderful people that we have in our studio tonight. Karibuni sana once again. Good people at home, welcome to the discussion. We have a great panel of people, all from different walks of life. And like Linda said, they've braved the tough Nairobi traffic this evening to join us. Karibuni. You people deserve a hand clap. Welcome. Welcome. Another reason why all of you deserve a hand clap, and people at home, I'm sure you're watching, you're paying attention, is because all of you, in one way or another, are champions, defenders, survivors, and victors of the topic of tonight, which is childhood hypertension and diabetes. So once again, karibuni sana. So now let's just go through a round of introductions. We've got, how many people do we have here? About 8 people. Yeah. 8 people in this room right now, excluding ourselves. Yeah. And so let's start with you, young man. Would you care to introduce yourself to our lovely Kenyans? This is your camera. Give a shout out.
My name is Albert Moshai. I'm a resident at Kabete in Kiambu County.
All right, shout out to your friends. Oh,
Too much alarm.
It's okay. It's all good.
Abby.
How about you? Good vibes only.
My name is Abby. I school at Meriliki.
Right, right. Albert and Abby. What about you, madam?
My name is Dr. Nicola Oket.
To me a mic.
Consultant physician.
To me a mic.
Karibu sana, doctor. How about you?
My name is...
The mic. You have the mic
One
up?
right behind you. Do you have a microphone? There you go.
I actually don't have.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Angela Kamau, or Mama Abby. And I'm her caregiver.
Oh, great. I thought that was your sister. Thank you very much.
My name is Mary Etale, a nutritionist. I work for the Current Hospital. I'm honored to be amongst the panelists to be featured on this show.
Karibu sana. How about you, sir?
Good evening. My name is Reverend Lincoln Obed. I'm the chair, the Association of Parents of Type 1 Diabetes. And thank you. It's a great honor to be here.
Absolutely. The honor is ours. She has a mic. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Irongo. I'm a medical doctor, and I work in public health for almost a decade now. So I'm here with a public health perspective of diabetes and hypertension.
Right.
And to kind of help us think in the abstract way and think of the things that sometimes maybe slip our minds.
Excellent. Thank you, and thank you for pointing that out. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
How about you, madam? Last but not least, we have not discriminated against you. In fact, you're the most important. Karibu.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Mchinia. I reside in Uthiru. I'm a parent to a teenager who is type 1 diabetes. Being a secretary to the group of parents of children living with diabetes, it's a great honor to be here. And I can give my shout out to all those who are watching.
Yes.
We are here to learn and to educate the world that diabetes and hypertension is not a killer disease. It can be managed given that time. That's why we are here.
Right, right.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. I mean, she's the one that understood the assignment out of all of you. She sent shout-outs. She sent shout-outs. Thank you so much. God bless you. You'll go to heaven. Now, guys, shall we begin?
Yes, we should begin, and I
Yes.
think we begin by speaking to the doctors. We have a couple of, statistics here that would speak to the situation, in the country and beyond. We are discussing type 1, but at the same time, type 2. And so the doctors at the house should begin by, first of all, telling us, when we're talking about childhood diabetes and hypertension, before we even break it down to diabetes 1 or diabetes 2, just what is the relationship between these two? We'll begin with you, Dr. I see you have the microphone already, so there you go.
So when it comes to diabetes and hypertension, they are related in that both of them are what we refer to as non-communicable diseases. Non-communicable diseases just means that they are diseases that cannot be transmitted from one person to another. So when it comes to childhood diabetes and hypertension, they are common. And one of the things that we need to really look at, of course, with type 1 diabetes is that it's more common in children. However, there are rates of type 2 diabetes that are starting to come up in our population, more common in the Western world, but because we are adopting more of a Western kind of lifestyle, we'll see higher rates of type 2 diabetes. When it comes to the prevalence of diabetes and hypertension, let me talk about diabetes because I'm an endocrinologist. It's around 3% in the population, but as I mentioned, majority of our cases are type 2 diabetes.
All right. Dr. do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a small mention from the public health perspective. Before, everyone was focused on the infectious diseases. But now we have what we call a double tragedy because we're having an increase also in the non-communicable diseases. So, and if you have, it's possible to have both communicable and non-communicable diseases. And like Dr. mentioned, diabetes and hypertension, they're all complex diseases because they affect literally everything in your body. So if you have a patient with both, it's more happening in the body, more stress for the patient. And even for public health, for people to understand, like we're saying, it's not a killer disease, but you need to sensitize on how to manage. So just to complement, that's all I could add. Thank you.
And in this case, then we're referring to the young tucks right here, who first of all are here to share their story, but of importance. Tell us just how they are managing this. You can imagine at this tender age, George, and therefore you are diagnosed with a condition that you are perhaps told that you have to manage this. For a long time, if not for the rest of time, and the doctors were going to clarify that, just what it is, like for them, and perhaps at what point do they get to understand that this is the space that I'm in, and perhaps for the rest of time. Albert, Abby.
Welcome, guys. I think we'll begin with Albert. At what point, perhaps, did your parent or caregiver disclose to you the condition that you have?
I got to know the condition that I have back in November in 2021. I had come from school normally, like any other student will go back home for a midterm break. But when I got home, my parents looked at me and they were not so comfortable the way I looked like.
How did you do like? What did you
I was very thin and very pale. I used to take cold water, iced cold water because of the thirstiness. And I used to cry a lot because of the muscle pulls. So when I go home, it was quite late. We didn't visit any hospital. But the following morning, we went to a nearby hospital. And I was done several tests. And it was quite scary because I went to the hospital telling myself it's just for like 30 minutes, I'll be done. But when the nurse who was in charge in the laboratory did the first test, she went and called out the doctor, and the doctor came in, rushed with some syringes, some drip water, and a lot of stuff. So I got confused what is going on. So the doctor instructed me to get into a ward, and I got in, and I was put under drip, and he gave me a shot of insulin. So at that point, when the nurse was finalizing everything, the doctor called out my dad, and they talked. of which scared me a lot because we were here with my dad and now he's been called out separately without me. So I was like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? So my dad came in and he sat down quietly. And I asked him, what is going on? What is happening? And he just kept looking down, saying nothing to me. So at that point, the doctor came close to me, and he said, unfortunately, your blood sugars are quite high. At that point, it didn't click in my mind. I might have diabetes, probably something that has triggered or anything. So curiosity told me to ask the doctor how high was it, and it was quite high. It was around 40. So I was like, okay, no problem. So what am I supposed to do? So the doctor just said, they'll give me some few shots of insulin and put me under drip for quite some hours until my sugars stabilize. So from there, it was quite a journey. We were referred to another hospital to visit a diabetologist. And that's when I came across Lions Hospital. They have a diabetes clinic. And I met my diabetologist there. And I was done quite some tests, very many tests. And the last test was to prove that my pancreas is not able to produce any insulin for me. And when the test came out, I wasn't ready to read the letter by myself, so I asked the diabetologist to read it on my behalf. And she did, and she explained everything on it. And there, in the presence of my dad and my aunt, the doctor disclosed to me that it is true, I'm a diabetes type 1. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Abby?
I was diagnosed when I was 2. And I really don't remember that much.
Yeah, of course, one wouldn't remember there too.
Yes.
So what made you, is it that you went to school and you realized you had quite some medication, or did you notice the medication when you were of age to be able to see this is medicine that you're taking?
Yeah, yes.
And how did you feel about it?
At first, it was not easy because I will see other children eating some things I can't eat. Sometimes it will make me feel like I'm alone, but I later accepted it. Yes, and right now I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Albert and Abby will be, and thank you for braving your stories and telling us and our wonderful viewers of your how your journey has been. I'm sure now you want to pick the minds of.
Yes, indeed.
Able to.
I'm curious, and Angela, you saw this happen to your baby. Talk to us about that experience. How was that?
Well, that was a painful experience. It was very overwhelming. When we took her to hospital, because she had some signs of diabetes, which I really didn't know, but my husband is the one who happened to watch Dr. Eva Jenga on TV. She happened to be giving, the signs and symptoms of diabetes. So he would tick. This is in Abby. She had lost a lot of weight. She was a heavy baby. So she lost...
Proper bundle of joy. Proper bundle of joy. Very nice, very lovely. It's a good moment. This is your lovely daughter.
Exactly.
And then you find out there's a problem.
Yeah. So we took her to hospital, and when she was tested, of course, the reaction of the nurse who checked her sugars also gave us, that shock and wondering what's wrong. So we were told that her sugars were very high, and we're told she's diabetic. So we're told you need to go and see an endocrinologist ASAP. So we took her to hospital. It was confirmed. She was admitted. And when she was admitted, I think I was in denial. I was like, I'd never had a small baby being diagnosed with diabetes. And I actually called the nurse and asked her, why is my baby the first one, to have diabetes? And she told me, don't worry, she's not the first. There are very many out there. And I was like, I've never heard of anyone. So that's why I decided that we are going to keep talking about this type 1 diabetes, because we have to take the word out there that it is there, And nobody needs to feel ashamed that the condition is with the daughters or sons, with our children. And we thank God for this far that He has brought us. It's not been easy. Injecting her as a little baby was the toughest times because we had to inject her in a day. I think we used to do 4 injections because she has to do every 3 times. Whenever she has a meal, she has to inject, and 1 now in the evening. So when injecting her, at some point she would run away from me because I'm supposed to be embracing her, but I'm the one who's inflicting pain. Yeah, so she would run away and run to the dad. So we decided this has to be two-way.
A team effort.
Yes.
Yes. Equal opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah, so it has been a journey that, that we've walked with her and seen how she's grown and even accepted, and even she's able to take care of herself, even going to school, having her siblings, take care of her. They are always there with her. Yeah.
So just to be clear, it's just her among the other kids?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you have, are they older than her, younger than her?
There's one who's older than her and one who's younger than her.
Oh, you're the middle kid. It means you're equally lucky, and there's a problem at the same time. There's something called middle kid syndrome.
Yeah.
Maybe story for another day. But I want to bring in Deborah here, Madam Secretary. Shout outs. At what point did you find out that your child has this condition? And what was that experience for you before we come to the Reverend?
Oh, it was an experience. I think it's been 9 years now. This was in 2015, September. The boy was living in the village with my mother. And there's this particular day that I received a call from one of my in-law telling me in a shocking way, those distress calls. If you don't look for a way to take care of this baby, atakufa tu. Just like that. So in town, he was in the village. So I organized for how he could come to town. Then when he came to Nairobi, I took him to Nairobi Hospital. After some tests were done, I was given a kit for H. pylori.
H. pylori?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
We went home. The boy was pale. He had lost weight. The first time now, he came from home, reached Nairobi, I was at work. When he came to the plot where I was staying, no neighbor could recognize him. So he had to stay at the door, waiting for me to come back. My immediate neighbor was like, huyu mtoto nimemwona kama amekaa hapa toka saa zile, kwani ni fulani? Because he could not be recognized. So from the hospital, I was given the kit for H. pylori. For the first day, I gave him. The second day, on the third day, the boy could not even move from the seat. And
even as you're talking, I can see different expressions on the faces of our doctors.
yes, he could not move.
You'll shed some light on that a bit later, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Holding a cup was a problem. Even going out to the washroom. So at times he would sit and pee on himself on the seat. Then personally, I could not understand what the problem was because I was like, I have been already given the medication. You need to take the medication, then you'll be okay. On the fourth day, at around midnight, I had him sneezing several times. So when I woke up and tried to kumshika, the boy was like, wachana tu na mimi. Just leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm tired. Then I was like, what's wrong? I gave him another medication. Sasa nikaacha ile yenye nilikuwa nimepewa, nikampea painkiller. Because alikuwa anasema anaumwa na magoti, anaumwa na joints za mikono, vidole zinamuuma. So I had some paracetamol in the house. Nikamwongezea. The following day now, because he was 15 by then, he was on the seat. Hapo ndikanaka. I used to live in Kawangware by then. Hapo ndikanaka in a one-bedroom house. Ndiyo nyumba na ndiyo everything. So I feel like the cushion is already soft. He's shy because he's a boy to tell me, mama nataka kwenda washroom. So sometimes he will pull the basin, anasusu, then anasongesha hapo. Asubuhi nimeenda kazi. Now, on the 4th day, I had a discussion with one of my colleagues. And I tried to describe the kind of signs that I'm seeing. And they was like, murudishe tu kwa daktari. Maybe the drugs are too strong for him. So when I went home, the following day now, because it was at night, the following day, now he was worn out completely. He's not even the one in the state that he came in when he was coming from home. He has been on medication for 3 days, but now it's getting worse. He can't even zip the water from the cup. You have to pull his mouth for you to pour the water. Yeah.
What is this doing to you, watching your strong, vibrant son look like
I'm shocked. The whole thing just came like a total nightmare. So on this particular day, I had to take him back to the hospital. So when we went to, I think it was Nairobi Hospital, I went with the kit of the medication that I was given. And I asked the doctor, I've been on this medication, he has been on this medication, there's no change, and this is how he is. By that time, he could not even open his eyes. So we were told that you need to take time, they need to go do the tests. And I think we reached at the hospital at around 9 in the morning. At around 11, I was given a wheelchair. Because now there, he could not be on the seat. So he was like, take me to the washroom. Take me to the washroom. For like 4 times, we were still at the triage. I'm taking him to the washroom and back to the bed. For the 6th time, he could not now, I didn't have the energy now, because I was feeling like, surely doctors, it's taking too long, you are not giving me an answer, I need to wait for the results to come from the lab, nothing is happening. I got just that wild now. I started shouting to the doctors, to the nurses at the triage, hakuna kitu mnaweza fanya kumsaidia hata sasa aache kutetemeka, because now he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So at which point when the results actually came, talk to me about how
the
you
results
felt.
didn't come.
They didn't? Not that day?
While we were waiting for the results, one of the nurses, I think the nurses were taking a change of shift. So the nurses who were coming in, one of the nurses asked me, Madam, what do you mean that you are still here instead of taking him to the ward? Then I asked her, should I take her to the ward? Which ward do I need to take her for him to be attended to? Then she asked me, for how long have you been here? I told her, I came here at 9. It's almost noon. The shock on her face pushed me far away. I was like, wait.
Hold it there.
Deborah, on that note, my goodness, that is quite an experience. In fact, it's such an experience that I think we all need to take a breather. And I can see you might, might benefit from a moment. Let's take a breather. We'll come back with this story. Good people, we're talking about hypertension and diabetes, particularly in children. We have parents here. We have, some young people here who've actually been surviving and having victory over this. We have medical personnel here, experts, who are here to give us some insight on this. Please keep it right here. Send in your questions on X or Twitter at TV47 News, at George Maringa _ and at
Linda
_ Alela, and with me, of course, at Muyakane. Later on, we will give you, our audiences, an opportunity to actually call in and share your experiences or even ask questions of our doctors this evening. Please keep it right here on TV47, the home of untold stories. We'll be right back.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus niko niwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Right, if you're joining us right now, this is the People's Court, and on trial in the People's Court is hypertension and diabetes, particularly in children. And we're having a discussion with parents, survivors, and medical personnel, as well as the actual young people, brave, tough, fighting this thing, and they're here with us. And when we went on break, we were listening to Deborah's story. She's in hospital. Let me tell you, let me give you a recap. Here's where we are. We're in the hospital room. The young man, 15 years old at that time, 15 years old, looking a shadow of himself. A nurse is pointing out the fact that this boy should be in the medical ward. Talk to us. What happens then? What happens at that point, Deborah, please?
Thank you. Now, when the nurse told me that this boy needs to be already in the ward, told of me, then I was asking her, which ward should I take her for her to be assisted? Then I just had the nurse, another group of nurses that were around the bed saying, have they tested the sugars? And I was like, sugars? In me, I didn't have anything in my mind to do with sugars. Because the other time the tests were out and we were told that he has H. pylori. So now sugars and H. pylori, to me, it was not adding up. So now, when the doctors were asking about to do the test for the sugars, the boy just froze on the bed.
Wow.
And as a parent, I just broke. I was held by the nurses out of the room and asked if I could give a number to the next person that I can call to come. So in me, each and everything in my mind had already evaporated. So I was asked, do you remember the last time you were here? To me, I was, on that one, I remembered. Then I told them he has been on the medication for 4 days, and I have already given the medication to the nurse at the triage. Then I was taken to another room and told, just sit down, calm, everything will be okay. I think it took me like another 1 hour. I can't remember what happened myself.
So all this time, this is the first time you're actually even dealing with the possibility that this could be diabetes. Now, hold that thought. I believe our health experts in the room can help us break it down. There's been quite a number of symptoms that have been described, starting from Albert all the way to Deborah, or every single person who's spoken. Maybe with your exception, you were too young to remember, or probably you didn't have the language to remember. But there's quite a number of symptoms here and quite a number of things. Could you just care to just break it down for us? What are these symptoms? For those who are wondering, what are I had something like that, or I'm always thirsty, or for example, or I feel weak and I go to the bathroom many times. All those different things. Talk to us about some of those.
So, a diagnosis of diabetes does require a high index of suspicion. Although what we know in the medical field is that the symptoms tend to come in like a cluster. So when you have a cluster of those symptoms, you will definitely suspect that this particular patient has diabetes. So the symptoms are what we describe as osmotic symptoms.
What does that mean in English?
So it means that osmotic means in relation to water.
Okay. Right. Like osmosis.
Yes. So there's increased thirst, that's one of them.
Like Albert.
Yes, and then there's frequency of urination.
Like Deborah's son.
Some people experience quite a high appetite, although they lose weight, and I'll come and tell you why they lose weight.
Interesting.
And then fatigue, okay? So a combination of those symptoms should lead a healthcare practitioner to suspect that this particular patient has diabetes, okay? So it could either be type 1 or type 2. Now, when it comes to why these symptoms come about, it's because of what the underlying problem is with diabetes. So when someone eats food, majority of the time, particularly when you're talking about carbohydrates, they're broken down into glucose. And glucose is the energy of the body. So the body needs to find a way to get that energy from the bloodstream into the cells where it can use it. And the way it does that is by using insulin. So insulin acts like a key to unlock that channel for the glucose to enter the cells. So when someone lacks insulin, which happens in type 1 diabetes, that key is not there. So the glucose does not enter the cells and facilitate energy for the cells, okay? So what happens is that the glucose persists in the blood, and it is now what is picked up as a high blood sugar, okay? So when the sugar is very high in the blood, blood is always filtered in the kidneys, but the kidney has a limit up to which it can filter glucose. So any excess is excreted in the urine. So that's why you find that the person is losing glucose through the urine. And glucose lost through the urine pulls water with it. So the person is frequently urinating. And that frequency of urination also now leads to increased thirst because they're losing a lot of water. And they're losing that glucose, so they're losing calories. So they lose the weight, okay? They lose the calories, they are frequently hungry. And they're not getting that energy into the cells, so they are very tired. So you find that people are, just the way she described Hassan, he was just quite tired. So the body tends to look for another source of energy, and what it does is try to break down the fat cells. And unfortunately, when these fat cells are broken down, they do produce what we call acids, keto acids. And these keto acids, when they reach a critical level, can affect the brain function. And that's why some people can even present in a coma. Yeah. So basically, that's what goes on.
We even get to the whole breakdown of all this, one big concern then would be, what are some of the causes? You know, because at this point, perhaps people are thinking, could it be genetically conditioned, or could it be, you know, something of lifestyle? And I know at that point, then we'll bring the nutritionist who is going to explain what are some of the foods that you're supposed to eat, what you're not supposed to eat. That perhaps could be the biggest fear. You know, the parents are wondering, none of us in the family has this, so why is it that it's happening?
So with all non-communicable diseases, I mean diabetes, high blood pressure, there is always an interaction between genetics and the environment. So there's definitely a genetic predisposition. It's more so in those who have type 2, but that doesn't mean that in type 1 there is no genetic predisposition. But it also doesn't mean that every pregnancy will be affected. For example, in Abby's family, it's only her who's affected. So with each pregnancy, there is a certain risk for any child who is born during that pregnancy to develop or not develop diabetes. So there's that genetic predisposition. Then when it comes to the environmental factors, sometimes we might not necessarily know what causes type 1. Type 2 is known because it's mainly that westernized kind of lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle, not a very healthy diet. But in type 1, what is the main cause and what is sometimes thought to occur is because it's as a result of infections. So some people might find that there's been a viral infection some time back, and one of the things that has been found is maybe cases of mumps, but sometimes you're also not able to know what is happening. So what happens with infections is that the body misinterprets and misrecognizes the pancreas, which is the organ that produces insulin, as being the source of the infection. So it mounts an immune reaction to this gland and destroys those insulin-producing cells. Yes.
Wow.
All right, and George, before you come in, let's be fair and listen to what it is a doctor, Reverend, has to say. And Reverend, perhaps we're not going to ask for your experience and that of your child and all that, but you are now sitting in as a father to many parents who have children who have diabetes. Could you be having a rough idea of just how common this situation is in the country?
Thank you once again.
Have a mic up.
Delighted to be here.
Let's have the microphone up.
15 years ago, when my daughter was diagnosed of diabetes, I was watching TV in November, and Dr. Eva Jenga was speaking during the month of November, the month of Diabetes Awareness Month. And wherever Dr. Eva Jenga, the renowned doctor in this country, wherever she could talk of the signs of diabetes, I could tick with what my daughter was going through. And the following morning, I told my wife, we need to take our daughter to go be checked. And we took our daughter to go and do a checkup. And when we were given the news that our daughter was diabetic, I think that was the most devastating experience and time I've ever had. In my family, we've never had any diabetes, as far as I knew. And it was very shocking. And as a reverend, someone was working with the church fraternity. I was like, where is God? Why this to me? To this little child. It took me 3 years to eject my daughter. It was so traumatizing to eject this tiny kid. It took me 3 years to eject my daughter. And as we sit here, we want to give a shout out to all the parents who are out there who are struggling with this challenge of monitoring and taking care of type 1 diabetes and hypertension also. We have an association for parents that and our motto is, together we conquer type 1 diabetes. My doctors here will concur with me. The first caregiver of type 1 diabetes is the parent. We are the ones who are hard hit. And we want to tell all the parents who are listening to us out there, there is no stigma. It's not that the devil has visited you in your house. No, these things can happen to anyone. And as the doctor says, some of them might be genetic, others we don't know what might be the cause. And but one thing I've liked is we are encouraged by the word of God. In all things, give thanks. Give thanks in all things. For the last 15 years, if you see my daughter, unless you are told she's type 1 diabetes, you may not know she's type 1 diabetes. And thanks to many doctors who are taking care of us out there, and we are so grateful for the work they do to us. We have myriad of challenges. How some of these gadgets of testing, the glucometers, they're not cheap. The insulins, right now, many of us will concur with me out there. I think because of the high taxation, there is an increment of the pricing of the insulin, and we are calling on our government kindly to come and work with us and see how they can cushion us in some of these daily giving life to our children.
Reverend, I know we might not have specific numbers, yeah?
Yes.
But in your association, for instance, just how many?
I'm so sorry, Reverend. I know you're here in another capacity, but I urge you to hold the microphone like a preacher. The preacher that you are. Take it away, sir. Yeah.
Just to answer your question, what we are trying to urge many of our counties, we have a hub. Each of the county should have a hub to take care of our children, because now health is a devolved function. So we are trying to, some of the counties are doing very well. We've had sittings with the Council of Governors, and some of the counties are doing very well, others are struggling. But we have an overwhelming numbers. You know, where, like now, if you go like to Kenyatta National Hospital, if you go there, we have a clinic called Clinic 23, and we thank God for Dr. Mungai, the rest of our Dr. Mungai, Dr. Laigon, and the rest of the team, and the rest, I think we are grateful. The numbers are overwhelming. But just coming back to where I came from, one of the greatest challenge in terms of managing type 1 diabetes are the drugs, the insulins, the glucometers, the strips. Many of the parents are struggling. Now, as the Association of Parents of Type 1 Diabetes, we are in the tech savvy world. Nowadays, we have things that are called CGMs. The patch you put on the body here, and it can give you real-time reading of the sugar levels of your child, you know, using just a gadget. Now, my daughter came, she's at Miraliki Girls, Form 2. She got sick last week. We got a call and her sugar spiked. And I'm telling you, as I'm seated here today on Tuesday, from Tuesday to today, we've been struggling. Saturday, Friday in the hospital. It is today when our daughter is okay. Her sugars were 33, 20. On Saturday, she was put on drip. And all. So we are urging those that are in the health docket to come and assist many of our parents. Nowadays, apart from the CGM, there are things like even the insulin pump. A gadget you put on your body, it will detect the sugar levels. If the sugar levels are high, it will drop the insulin in the body. And those ones are much pretty in terms of controlling the sugar level. Like one of our parents here said, we've had many of our children go into fits. They go into blackout when the sugar levels drop down. We've had with my daughter twice or thrice. It's one of the most devastating scenarios and very scary. So thank you for this, all the parents who are out there. Then the other issue we have is the issue of stigma. When our kids are in schools, some of the schools don't want to get our children because of the awareness. You know, some of the schools, they don't have the storage capacity in terms of storing things like the insulin. There are no fridges. So we have many of our kids who are in the high schools are struggling in terms of where do I store my insulin. So we need a concerted effort. As the Association of Parents of Children Living with Diabetes, as parents, we are calling all those that are out there. We hold us together, and together we can defeat this monster. These kids can live a normal life. And exploit their full potential to the maximum.
Brilliant. Thank you, Reverend, for bringing up, the issue of schools. And I want to bring in our nutritionist, Mary Etale. Let's even begin with schools, the setup, because that's the demographics of our wonderful guests here this evening. When you look at management of diabetes, what are some of the nutritional requirements that then a patient, especially from the 18 and below, should consider before you go to the older demographics, should be able to consider, because in school, as you know, Reverend is saying, they are normal kids, they go through school, but again, they would want to have a proper situation where they're able to feed in the right way and eat the right things. What should be the considerations, the dietary considerations?
When it comes to controlling blood sugars, nutrition is usually 80%.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it means it plays a major role. Then sometimes we say 20% is for medication and exercise. So when it comes to food, we have different types of nutrients. We have different food groups that by the end of the day, you need to have balanced so that your body can get all of them. So for example, when it comes to controlling sugars, let's say for example in schools, it depends which school you are. Some schools are very good, some schools, you know, they're still debatable. So when you're in a good school, you can coordinate with your matron or your headmistress or your principal or whichever who is supposed to do that.
Yes.
So when you come into that, you can have a special meal plan for the student. So most of the time, so what we do, we give them a letter.
Let's swap your microphones. I think the one with that is behind.
The preacher's microphone was too strong. The preaching was too strong.
Yeah. Do you have a second mic?
Let's just swap the microphones a little bit. Deborah, just swap a little bit as our technician takes the other mic.
Okay.
Yeah,
Make sure it's doing okay.
So most of the time what we do, we write them a special letter addressing on their special condition. So when they have that letter, the principal will be able to give her balanced meals, coordinating now with the parents.
Okay.
So when it comes to foods, we have foods that can control blood sugars and we have some foods which can spike sugars. So that is where you come in, the patient, the student or the patient comes in, then you have a proper history and a proper diet that she's supposed to be on. Let's say, for example, sometimes you can do based on the kgs, based on the, you know, age and everything. So some of the foods that we prefer, they are foods that slows down the sugar. Like we have two types of carbohydrates when it comes to carbohydrates. We have the ones we call simple carbohydrates, and then we have some other ones called complex. So most of the time we usually advise for the complex. Complex would mean it will stay for long hours in your blood system. It will stay for long hours in your bloodstream, other than the simple. The simple will take a shorter time to get digested. That would mean if you take a simple carbohydrate, it will spike your sugars.
Okay.
Because they're easily absorbed. And if you take a complex one, it will get slowly into your bloodstream. And that is what we advocate for.
Okay.
So when it comes to other different food groups, because you have to balance them by the end of the day. So most of the time we usually say, like half of the plate is supposed to be plenty of the vegetables, 25% is protein, 25% is starch. Okay? And all of them, it depends on the amount that you're taking. If you take too much again, it can also lead to spiking sugars. If you take too little again, and then the insulin dosage, maybe you didn't administer so well, you can also go into hypoglycemic state. So most of the time, the hypoglycemic state means that the sugars are going down, like the one Reverend has just been talking about. So most of the time, it could be you've stayed for long hours without eating, or the insulin dosage that you administered was not the right dosage. Okay? And then also when it comes to balancing these meals, when it comes to proteins, of course we have two types of proteins. We have the animal, from the animal sources, and then also we have from the plant sources. Yes. But by the end of the day, it's the amount that you're taking. That is how, when I sit with Alfred, I'll have to teach him. I'll have to tell him, Alfred, this is the amount of protein that you should eat. This is the amount of starch that you should eat. If not,
then we'll have to spiking sugars. And
Excuse me,
eventually...
please. I've got a question just on that point.
Yes.
When you say amount, are you talking about portions?
The
Volume,
portions. The quantity.
Because, you know, when you say 25% and 25% and 50, it could be 25% to 6 kilos of ugali, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So could you be a little bit more specific there, please?
Okay, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
When I say that, it means we have measurements which you can use. There's what we call carbohydrate counting. So there are specific tools which you're supposed to teach them using them, so that they can be able to understand and they can be able to measure the quantity. Okay. Now, depending on the insulin dosage.
Okay.
That is why it is very important for you to have a session with the nutritionist, and the nutritionist will teach you everything. Okay? Yes.
That clearly adjusts your kitchen, for instance. It turns out to be a totally different kitchen. Before we come to Dr. and I'm sure Dr. must tell us something. Just how much did this adjust your kitchen?
When she was diagnosed, we tried to change stuff. So we were advised, you need to give her brown rice, brown ugali, more veggies, and the plant-based proteins. We did that for some time, and that meant we also had to eat the same because we couldn't do a special diet for her. So we tried it, and at some point she refused to eat.
Okay.
She was like, no,
because of
no brown ugali.
Because of the difference of taste.
Yes, yes. So, and she was at a stage where she's growing. She needs these carbs. So again, we couldn't take them all out. So we decided to give her whatever we used to eat. If it is the ugali, we get maize and, have it milled. Yeah. So that one, and then the portion now, you reduce the portion and give her more veggies and more of the proteins.
All right.
Yeah, I'm seeing Dr. Elizabeth has been nodding all along. I want us to bring in the public perspective in this. The nutritionist, Dr. Mary is talking about, looking at speaking to your matron, speaking to so-and-so. That sounds to be in a good schooling system. But let's look at our public institutions and, informal settlements, if you could call it. What are some of the adjustments that perhaps even to the viewers watching that they can follow to be able to comfortably live with these conditions?
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to, an approach we commonly use in public health is what we call the biopsychosocial model.
Yes.
So bio is the biology, what is happening in the body.
You might want to swap, I think, the microphone.
The microphone. Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Sorry. Hello? Is this one better?
Is that one okay? I think so.
Guys, is that okay?
Is that okay? Yes, proceed.
Okay, so I wanted to say what we use in public health is what we refer to as the biopsychosocial model. So bio is the biology, what we've explained, the disease process for diabetes, so the pathology, plus how your insulin works. So all that is the bio aspect. Psycho this is like everyone has described, it's very traumatizing. Like one day your child is normal, then the next everything is happening, you don't know, no one is telling you because the medical fraternity are understanding it's a crisis. So they are into like crisis mode and you're left in the middle of a lot of trauma. So that's the psychological aspect for the caregiver and for the child. So for a child who was up and about, sometimes they come in coma. Sometimes they're peeing on them. It's a lot of trauma that nobody prepared you for.
Yeah.
So that's the psycho part. Social, who is supporting this child? Do they have a treatment buddy? Do they have somebody who understands what does it feel like when you're going into hypo? Are you alone? Do you have someone you can talk to? So from a public health perspective, we like to look at it that way and to sensitize. And in public health, we repeat like in nursery school, over and over and over until we finish the stigma. So even for those in whatever social strata, it could be upper, middle, or lower, I would insist on sensitization for people to understand the biology. And for biology, the way you teach in a way that a 3-year-old can understand. So sometimes you have to have a toy, sometimes
to what they can process. Because at the end of the day, if you want Adi or Albert to take insulin, they need to internalize what you're saying and process. This is like baby steps and a lot of patience, because everyone is traumatized.
Okay, brilliant.
You're medic, you're on autopilot, so you need to do this. You know, you've gone into your doctor.
Yeah.
And sometimes you forget, oh my God.
Yeah, we'll come back to you, Dr. Elizabeth, but perhaps I want us to pick the minds of this wonderful gentleman, even as we get the other sound system checked. Albert, I'll begin with you. Now, listening to what our parents and the medics are talking about, is this something that perhaps you've seen emulated in your lifestyle in terms of what you're eating, and how beneficial has it been?
For me, I saw it being just quite difficult for everyone, because it came about quite tight in the year, because it was in November, so we were preparing for the Christmas season.
Oh yeah.
And
boozies were loading.
Yeah, so it was quite tough on my end, because at this time my sugars were still spiking up quite frequently, and now I was changed from the diet I was used to a new diet of no starch at all, and some kind of other foods. So during the December, it was really tough, seeing other people eat all sorts of goodies, and I couldn't do them.
You're just eating leaves.
Yeah, having
worst Christmas ever?
Pardon?
Was that the worst Christmas ever because of that?
Yeah, I couldn't enjoy myself the way I used to. But then coming down the journey, the whole family, the closer family, even the extended family, we had to change our diet, and the way we used to eat, and the way we used to carry out our activities. And it was kind of emulated for everyone. It was tough, but it was.
Does it not feel bad that perhaps you pull them to that direction? And are there times you feel like, oh, Shay, couldn't have been this and all that?
I really did feel that, mostly for my younger siblings, because they couldn't enjoy what they were taking, seeing me have a different kind of food on my plate. So they also adapted to it and even said, okay, if our brother is doing this, then it's okay, we'll still do it. Though it was also hard for them to accept that.
How was it for you to adapt to the new, different dishes?
It was really tough. Mostly at that point, having not eat red meat for quite some time, and a chapo, rice, and all those.
Do you have those tempting moments when you want to do your ice cream?
Days.
They're there, eh?
Yeah, I really.
Once in a while.
Yeah, a lot.
You hammer fries.
Once in a while, you break the rules.
Yeah.
School. You are not in school, and maybe this has happened for several times. How do you manage to just catch up with the rest of the people? Does it sometimes feel you like, get you feeling like you are lagging behind, and perhaps it could have been a different affair? Have you just come up with mechanisms of managing?
It's not easy to cope, but I really thank God for the school I am in. Everybody has accepted me. They would really help. Coping in school, it's not hard. I feel at peace when I'm in school. But I remember when I was in Form 1, the first term, it was really hard knowing that you're alone, you have to do this. Sometimes I'll usually come home a lot of times. Sugars, sometimes they are high, they'll be high, they won't come down. Sometimes they are low, they are not going up. So for me, first time in Form 1 was not easy, but I adjusted and I'm doing well and okay. Yeah.
Do you have a treatment buddy, like Doctor was talking about? Do you have somebody that helps you in school?
Yes.
Oh, great. Shout out to them. Shout out.
Yes, I do. I have someone, a friend, who is really there for me, who helps me, and we help each other. Yeah.
Shout out to them. Come on. We appreciate them.
Her name is Joy.
All right, there you go. Joy, we appreciate you. Bundle of joy.
Absolutely, a bundle of joy.
Yes.
Quickly, Madam Nutritionist, before we come out of this food and all that, you have heard Mama say that sometimes they had to just decide, let's go back to this other side. Just how much of a danger is this? Because then if we are going to say we are supposed to follow a certain rule religiously, and then at some point in time you feel like now, I mean, this adjusts everybody's meal, but at the same time she is not happy taking it. Do you have an option of saying, well, we can break the rules?
I would say the good thing with type 1 diabetes is not restrictive as much as to type 2 diabetes. So once in a while, if they feel like they want to, you can just allow them.
To break the rules.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'd love to say, our wonderful mom over there, because when you talk about after, you can hand her the mic.
She has
the mic. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. When you look at the adaptation, especially for your son as well, how has it been so far in terms of adjusting to the dietary specifications, and also perhaps, do you need to incorporate exercise to them when they were young? How did you even have to adjust everything that involves your son? Did you have to, say, leave work at some early on so that you're able to be home and be able to take him through exercise, insulin, cook for him the nice food?
Thank you. I think from the word go now, because he ended up in a coma for 4 days, then 19 days in hospital, then we went back home. And at that time, he was preparing for his class 8 exams. Now, he had registered the exams at home. I had to take him back home to go do the exams. It's a whole new thing, a shock to me, a shock to my family back at home, and even the school.
When you say home, you mean up country?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, adjusting had to start from each and every corner of our lives. So after him doing the exam, we had to come back. The doctor at Nairobi, Kenyatta, Dr. Mungai, insisted that he can't be taken to a boarding school because he was only 3 months old after diagnosis, and he had to be monitored each and every time. So now, another problem was getting a school. You go to the school, you are told, here you are told, no.
Which is what the Reverend was talking about.
Yes. Now, the adjustment had to come to do with the food. This is a boy. I think Albert has said the same thing.
Yes.
You leave the house, you give the portions. When you go out, you'll come back. Tapata jama mekula. In the house, below the seats, nyuma ya milango, kuna chakula.
Wow. Hidden.
Yes. Utatoa hata pesa. 20 bob in the house was just a crime. Because akipata, atanunua zile chipo za kuvuruta na juala. Atakula. And now, wewe as a parent, you feel like, nimempatia portions. Why is the sugars high? You call the doctor. And I would really, really appreciate the support I got from the doctors at KNH, Dr. Mungai and Dr. Laigon. I used to call them each and every time. Now it became a threat for him. Now, if I tell him, you do this, I call doctor. Now that's where now he started behaving a little. But akiwa nje, you can't restrict. He'll meet you, uncle. Yes. Uncle doesn't know that you don't. Mama alikata 50 bob. Uncle tapeana 50 bob.
Or uncle buys 2 liters of soda.
No, soda no. But now the money.
Yeah.
Yes, he was not of the items. He was of the cash.
Cash.
Yeah. And with the meals in the house, we tried all. Kusiaga, unasiaga wimbi. I had to take food, the unga to school. And one person I would really wish to give a shout out in school. That's at Ruthimitu High School. There is one cook by the name Kiko.
Cook Kiko.
Yeah.
Kiko.
Shout out
Chef
to you.
Kiko.
Kiko, the cook.
Yes.
You're a legend. You'll go to heaven.
You know how hard it is to cook the wimbi ugali. And you have to cook the wimbi ugali for one person in a small pot. And he had to do it several and he will inform me. The unga is finished. This time, the one that you bought was not good. Try change even the place where you bought it. The vegetables, until the boy got comfortable in school. Another adjustment was for him to cope in school. He once became violent.
Wow.
He has eaten, the sugars are high, he becomes hyper in everything. You look at him, he will slap you.
Oh.
The teacher is looking at him, he's looking at the teacher like, unaniangalia aje. Ivo. With all that, once he was sent out of school, the teachers, you try to explain to the teachers what Reverend has said. We need the awareness even in the schools.
And I think the doctors should speak to that. Does it get to that level? Yes, Reverend, did you say something? Yes, briefly, and then we'll come to the doctors.
Two things. One, to the parents who are out there, we want to say our children who are type 1 diabetes should live a normal life. They should live a normal life and fulfill their full potential, as long as their sugars are well managed. Thing to take care of, one is listen to your doctor. If it's clinic days, please go for the clinic. One of the toughest scenario we have right now is we have a lot of our children who are being diagnosed, and doctors will tell you this, they are being diagnosed at a late stage. Some of them have gone blind. The other day, there was a team in Kajiado, and they came together, and 4 of the kids, one I think was 19 years old, the other one I think 17, they had gone blind because of late diagnosis. So we are telling all the parents out there, kindly, don't be quick, let your children be checked. Doctors are out here to help us. The other things, we need to be careful. Another thing we are called the Association of Parents of Children Living with Type 1 Diabetes, APACLID. And we are calling the fathers and the mothers. We rise up in unity and we work together in unity because we are the first caregivers of these children. And please, let's avoid late diagnosis of type 1 diabetes. There's a lot of consequence.
Very important, and let's allow the doctors speak to that, because then that's a very important factor in all this conversation. First of all, what it is, as in how worse can it, what's the worst that it can get to? And I know while reading this, I was just looking at, what is the problem with leg pain? Can it get to a point where you're amputated? Can it get to a point where your limbs are cut and all that? And I mean, just how important is it to diagnose at an early stage?
Just the way I think everybody has said here, anyone with diabetes, as long as they are diagnosed early enough and they are managed well, can lead a normal life. The problem comes in is when the diagnosis is delayed or the treatment is, basically the patient is not well managed. So now this definitely leads to those complications that we are talking about. And when we talk about those complications, we usually classify them into 2 types. So what we call microvascular and macrovascular. So microvascular would be complications dealing with the small vessels, which are mainly found in the eyes, in the kidneys, and along the nerves. So that's when you get people saying they go blind, there's kidney failure, or they have issues with the sensation in the legs, particularly the legs. And then when we talk about the macrovascular, it would be things like heart attacks, heart failure, strokes, or even these things that lead to amputations of the legs. So you really want to avoid getting to that point where someone is developing complications. The advantage of type 1 diabetes is that most of the time when someone has been diagnosed, they do not have those complications. For type 2, by the time people are being diagnosed, they've had diabetes for 5 to 7 years, and they just did not know. So most of the time you're diagnosing someone who's already come with complications. But for type 1, because they're relatively young, they come early enough, the symptoms are severe enough for them to seek help early, then they're diagnosed sometimes, most of the time, well before they get the complications. And of course, with type 1s, because it affects the younger population more, you want them to live a full life. They have a long life ahead of them, so you want to give them the best possibility of living a normal life. So that's why you really want to manage that condition properly.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a message here from one Dr. Otieno Odongo. At least we have other doctors watching, and they appreciate that we're having this topic that is quite, something that is very important and educating the masses. He says, I am watching the discussion on diabetes and would like to give my input in management and specifically exercise. Exercise plays a vital role in the management of diabetes. It helps to improve blood sugar control, increase insulin sensitivity, reduce the risk of complications, and enhance overall well-being. Physical activity helps lower blood sugar levels by increasing the uptake of glucose by muscle cells. Also, regular physical activity helps in weight management, which is important for controlling blood sugar levels and reducing the risk of obesity-related complications in diabetes. That is Dr. Otieno Odongo, a physiotherapist. Incredible. Just how much does exercise then come in?
Oh yes, absolutely. And there's another somebody here who calls themselves a funny name, but it translates to herbalist. They're wondering where is the role? Perhaps the nutritionist and our doctors can talk to this. What is the place of herbal medicine in managing diabetes? They're talking about some plants, like there's the one they call touch me not. You know the plant that when you touch it, it kind of shrinks back. Touch me not plant and mwarubaini and mukombero. Talk to us about those. What do they have an impact? Do they help in management of this?
From the nutrition point of view, I would say we didn't advise for herbs medications because when prolonged use of this medication sometimes might lead to organ failures.
Okay.
For example, the kidneys, for example, all those kind of complications that might come in later. So most of the time we don't advocate for herbs. Yes. Just seek your advice from the doctor and get the nutritionist advice. Yes.
Dr. Elizabeth, yes.
If I could just add, one challenge we have is that, let's remember, in public health, behavior change is one of the hardest things to do because you behave the way you behave based on where you grew up and how you grew up.
And how you saw
So
things
you're
being
coming
done.
today, you're being told you're diabetic. But maybe I believe there's a ritual my grandmother didn't do. There's something my auntie did to somebody. That, it's what we call medical anthropology, is hard to change because that's a belief system. So we have to continuously educate. Even, I think we had a side chat about marubaini. People will tell you boil this for these hours until it changes the color to brown. These are our beliefs, we're African. So from a public health perspective, you have to educate over and over again and understand, for your patient to understand the biology and see why the herbs will not work. And then the last thing I wanted to mention for the adolescents, they have so many struggles because adolescence itself is confusing. So your body is changing biologically, you're going through certain transitions. There's, in terms of you're developing, you're struggling with your identity. If it's the girls, the Oedipus complex, you're closer to your dad. You don't really want to be, there's so much you're struggling with. And then on top of that, there's diabetes. So also for the parents, flip and think from the side of your child. And I would advise, for many times we say, listen to your child. Ask them, what do you feel? Because, you're giving them interventions, but it's their body. And, they're in a transition. So maybe they're in that stage of rebellion. So you're also inflicting a lot. Go to the doctor, do this. And they're at a stage where they're developing cognitively. They're having and Gen Z, they think for themselves. So you're imposing onto someone who is developing to something else. So often you'll clash. And the more you clash, you're giving your child stress. When you push up stress, cortisol goes up. When your cortisol is up, you're messing it's such a vicious cycle that sometimes we say, okay, your child is a person who is not you. Give them time to be, listen to them, then journey with them. Even the exercise, it's true. But nowadays it's PlayStation. So if you want your child to be active, okay, maybe you should learn soccer and convince them, or you learn table tennis. I mean, journey with them and make it a fun sport. But the telling the child what to do today
is a tricky one.
Yeah.
You know, it gets more complicated.
Yeah.
Or perhaps, you know, we get to experience a lot more of a clash when you have other kids and you have to incorporate them in this whole process and get them to understand that Abby is, yes, a child like all of you, but in this case we have to treat her special. Perhaps, you know, it could be a whole different affair. Mama Abby, just how has it been like for you? Because you and Mzee could understand, but then what about the young ones who, you know, well, there's an older one to Abby, but now the younger ones, how do you get them to understand that this is a family affair, you know?
Okay, thank you. I think the older one, Lexi, she kind of understood where we were coming from, where Abby was coming from, because she saw what she was going through. And she was actually a very good caregiver. When she went to kindergarten, she's the one who used to go and tell the teacher when there's a birthday in school, in their class, oh, Abby's not supposed to eat cake. Yeah, and she would take her to the headmistress to have her insulin done, to have her sugars checked and all that. She's been a very great help to her. And even the young one, Kito, he's also now grown seeing her, you know, seeing us injecting. Well, he had questions, but they really support her, and that's something we are grateful for. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Well, but traditionally, I remember, Dr. Nicola, even as we enter the home stretch of this conversation, for those who still have accessibility issues, because I remember personally, one of my grandmothers was, back then there were no refrigerators to store the insulin, and so you find sometimes you should inject it when it was expired, because you know how you know, lack of ways of refrigeration or preservation. How do we, for those who need insulin, for those who need to inject, how do you survive? How do you cope and ensure that, oh well, whereas there are these even financial hardships, they're still able to manage?
So other than having fridges, because not everybody has access to fridges, yes. Sometimes our diabetes educator nurses do help our patients find other ways of storing their insulin. So there have been certain methods that have been advocated for example, storing them in a cool pot on a cool part of the house, so that at least the insulin is not denatured by the heat, because it is the heat that renders the insulin ineffective. So those are some of the things that can be used when there is no access to a fridge. However, what I just wanted to mention is that for the patients who are living with type 1 diabetes, there are programs or access programs that can help them access free insulin, particularly for the children. So I do know that there's a program that is run by this company called Novo Nordisk called Changing Diabetes in Children, that helps children who are from resource-limited backgrounds to be able to access insulin and the glucometers and the strips at no cost to them. The only disadvantage is that once they hit adulthood, they are on their own. So I think for us who deal with the adults with diabetes, we need to find a way to help our adults who are living with diabetes also have access to those medications and glucometers.
Absolutely.
Looks like it's an expensive affair.
It's an expensive affair. But perhaps, you know, due to time, of course, you've been reminded several times that you have to wind up this conversation. Victor, you can take us through the closing remarks in the home stretch.
Right. Now, it's a very sad note that we're ending at right there, that basically, so does that mean we all become Peter Pan? We never grow up. So if we need to get this service.
Well.
on that note, I would like to give an opportunity to, I'm afraid we will not be able to have everybody give a parting shot, all right? But I'd like to give the opportunity to just two people, brief as you can, to kind of wind us up. This is a big conversation. We're glad that you people have made time to be able to come here, and we've started a conversation, or we've joined an existing conversation, so thank you. Now, I want one of you, Oh my goodness.
The Reverend should tell us.
Abby's looking at me like, please, not me. Okay, Abby, don't you worry about that. So Albert, you will sign us out, and for the sake of our good Reverend, will close the session for us
and tell them how to get to to get a hold of.
Talk to us about the association and
yeah.
how people can get close to that. Doctor, you may need to give us that information. Good people, you'll see that information about the place where you can get free material for your children who are surviving diabetes. The organization, there was a rather long acronym. You'll give it to us and we'll put it on the screen. Over to you, Albert.
Thank you very much, TV47, for such a program and giving us the chance to come and shout out and raise our champion's flag high up. What I'd like to say is it's high time we young people, we the teens and the youth, to stand up for ourselves and speak out about diabetes. Many people are losing lives because of not having an aware of what diabetes is and how to manage it. So personally, with the help of our Reverend here and our doctors, we'll continue shouting out to people to stand out to diabetes. Don't feel discouraged about it. And we are still going to make it. We still have our lives to conquer and live on together. For as long as we manage our sugars, we keep exercising and eat the right diet as instructed by the nutritionists.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Albert, for that. I mean, he's a cool young man. Wish you all the best. Doctor, our dear Reverend. Reverend Obed.
Yes, for the parents who out there who have type 1 diabetic children, one of the lessons that I've learned for the last 15 years, one of the biblical principles I've learned is that we as parents, moms and dads out there, we are just stewards of these children. We do the best we can, but the paramount caregiver is God. So we'll do the best we can, but I'm just a steward. So I do my best stewardship, take care of her, but God will take care of our children. The other thing, kindly, I'm calling the fathers. We rise to the occasion and support the moms in terms of managing the type 1 diabetes. It's a huge among us. I want to give a shout out to Merelike Girls, the Merelike Girls High School. Thank you for the nurse, Madam Mary. We appreciate your work. And thank you to the many doctors who are taking care of our children who are type 1 diabetes. I know many of our parents of type 1 diabetes are following us. Excellent. Thank you for the good work you are doing. Kindly give us the doctor, the one for exercise. Yes. We have been looking for someone who can help us. We can do a Zoom meeting with that doctor. You've called him Dr. Who?
Dr. Odongo.
Doctor, please kindly let them get in touch with us. Yeah. They can get in touch with our secretariat. They can even call us. My number is 0722 873067 or 0733889530. And they can check on Facebook. We are there, and they are welcome.
Okay, doctor, slow down. Dear Reverend,
the numbers.
Give us the number again.
0722-873067.
And the second
Airtel line 0733-889530. They can also check on the Facebook. There is a PACLID, APCLID. They can check.
That's the name of the association.
Yes, APACLID.
All right. Thank you so much, dear viewers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for choosing us to inform you. I think my biggest takeaway from what the Reverend has said is the fathers should step up. Don't take 3 years like him before you start helping mom with the injections.
With the blessings of the director, at least gender balance,
Director,
one lady must say something.
Oh, excellent.
One lady must say something.
He has advocated for her.
Nick, do you want to say?
One lady must say something.
Nick has chosen you.
Oh, okay.
Nick is the director.
Right.
He's the director. He's the voice. He's the voice of God literally right now.
Okay. Thank you, Nick, for the opportunity to give a shout out and the closing remarks. And we are just grateful for you giving us the platform to come here and air out. We are the voices. We are the voice for the voiceless out there. And thank you too for the doctors, for the enlightenment. And another thing we will say that the awareness should not just be on TV alone. We should have people on the ground to do that, because we have those people who are on the ground and they even don't have phones and TVs. So there is need for a way they can be reached to.
Yeah.
We have those ones in Somali, in where? Turkana, where we have people who can reach them.
Right.
So if something can be done for them, and awareness in the schools, and there is another issue to do with the teenage and drugs.
Yeah.
There's another issue of teenage, diabetes, and drugs.
Story for
drugs
another
abuse.
day. But then again, the conversation continues on our socials.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Last speaker, Deborah Umchini, asante sana for speaking to us this evening, as well as Dr. Elizabeth Irungu, who's right next to Deborah, huko nyuma. And equally, we had Angela Kamau, Mama Abi. Thank you so much for speaking to us as well. Dr. Nicola Okech, asante sana for speaking to us. And we do not forget Mary Italia, who's the nutritionist. Asante sana for the great insights that we've gotten this evening, as well as Reverend Lincoln Obed. Asante sana, Reverend. And equally, Abi, oh man, all the best as you go back to school, right? We certainly hope that things will be good. Abi Tula, thank you so much for speaking to us. And last but not least, Albert Masharia. Gentlemen and ladies, asanteni sana for the great insights. And
to our viewers for their feedback, I believe their questions have been answered. Gwachi Records on X, formerly Twitter, asked, Tumuyakane, does puberty have an effect on blood sugar levels if you are diabetic? Could it cause spikes in blood sugar because of the body changes happening? I think we addressed that earlier on. Yeah, indeed, thank you so much for your feedback. We did not have time to go through it all, but we thank you, of course, for your patronage. My name is George Maringa, wishing you a good night from Nairobi. I'll see you next time. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another.
We hope there's no traffic as we go home.
Absolutely.
Linda Lela, thank you so much for joining us. We're always looking forward to these conversations. You can always tell us what it is that you want us to address next. We'll certainly do that. Our socials, as always, are open. Thank you.
Absolutely. Once again, big thank you for choosing us to inform you this evening. Thank you for our dear guests to join us. I hope you will pick up the phone next time. You're now friends of TV47, the home of untold stories.
Right.
And you just told those untold stories. Good night and God bless you. My name is Victor Muyakane.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Excellent. Well done.